It is currently 1:23 a.m. on the 9th of January. We are crawling into the early morning of Friday over here in Coolidge, Arizona, experiencing one of the coldest nights of the year, as most of the United States is currently experiencing a winter storm, which I'm grateful for because I live in the second hottest state territory in this entire country. I don't know why, it just happened that way. It's cold enough, though, that I'm able to wear a flannel, and that's all that matters to me. Tonight, we return to Australia. Not too long after all of these sessions we've been doing recently with next door neighbor country, New Zealand, hosting bands like Depths and the Rising Tide, which really, those opportunities slingshotted off each other in a really, really clean way, and now we are expecting and anticipating future sessions as per the recommendations of members from Depths and the Rising Tide of Disentomb, Dissect, and Organectomy, and Plague of the Fallen. That's another one. Secondary band for Dan Ferguson of Utilize the Remains, who really kickstarted our networking and kickstarted our New Zealand chapter all those years ago now, which is crazy to say, like all those years ago. We've been doing this for a little bit. But tonight, after plenty of conversation and commentary with my main Instagram, which I'll go ahead and go into now, just for the sake of context, right? I have been in conversation and talks with Seek Misery for a long time. I know that. Just to get this all kick-started, but okay, I guess I cleared the chat. Anyways. The conversation started over on the Anatomy Crosscast Instagram, November-ish, which is right around the time that they released their first full-length album. I have Ryan with me tonight. I have Davie with me tonight. We just did a Crosscore Patreon exclusive segment where more honest and more loyal to the dialect and language of this being a first date session, first date conversation, I allowed them to just ask me 2 random ass questions. And we had some fun talking about some stuff, looking back in time. Now, for even more nostalgia bait, gentlemen, welcome to the show. How are we doing tonight?
Thanks,
How are we
sorry.
doing this afternoon?
Thanks for having us, man. We're doing great.
Good.
Yeah, really, really good. Trying to stay cool. We're in the middle of a heat wave in Australia at the moment.
The irony of that, right? It's crazy to think that some parts of the world are experiencing drastically different weather phenomenon than we are in the United States. But mind you, this is also coming from someone who hasn't ventured out of like the same parallel line of like 5 state territories, which in other parts of the world are entire nations and countries apart, mostly in Europe. But ironic that not only for Australia, but I do believe for Mexico as well, which we did an interview with I forgot his name. It's also really late, forgive me. But we interviewed the vocalist for Guadalajara beatdown band Enemy 906, and with that session kickstarts our Mexico chapter, our Central America chapter, and eventually our South America chapter, which I'm really looking forward to, because we have bands like Escarnium from, I think, Brazil, or Wretched Anomaly from Chile, Esophagus from Chile. Like, we got some bands in mind. I'm always reaching out to new people. I should probably stop, because I'm overwhelming myself a little bit. But also, if I want to overwhelm the network and make sure that we have more than enough for people to jump into the show with and possibly hopscotch to other crosscasts, like, that's how we do it. But tonight, this morning for me, this afternoon, later afternoon for them, over in Australia. Like I said, we're hosting Davie and Ryan. They seem to be in good spirits despite how long it took for us to get started. I just needed to make sure to get some food, get a brewski, and that way I can really enjoy the night and take it in. So, we kickstart the commentary tonight with what will be the first part of either 2 or 3 parts, being that the Crosscore Patreon exclusive piece was only about half an hour, 20 to 30 minutes, right? We want to make sure to capitalize on commentary and also give these guys some room to tell their story. So in the first half, as we always do, This will be the people part of the podcast. Whoever wants to go first, introduce yourself, by name. That way people can at least associate with your voices during this conversation. And then name your role in Seek Misery and maybe a fun fact about yourself, and we'll go from that point.
I'm Davie. I am the bass player and co-manager of the band along with Ryan. And a cool fact is I've been playing and touring in bands since the early MySpace deathcore days. So I was fortunate enough to cut my teeth in the early 2000s, back when all of today's big bands were just starting out, and witness the rise of deathcore as we know it.
That's beautiful. That is a really fun fact to hear. I think that's actually the funnest fact we've gotten from someone. Yeah, that's cool. All right, thank you, sir. Ryan?
And hey, I'm Ryan. I'm the vocalist co-manager of Seek Misery as well, along with a few other things within the band. Fun fact about me, it's not as cool as Davie's, I don't think, because I've only been playing music for the past 5 years, but I've known Davie for a lot longer than that. Fun fact about me is I'm crossing that generation of old heads and new heads of metal. So I've played in bands where I've been the youngest member and the oldest members being close to 50, and being able to play on stage with them, and it's like giving new life to an old dog. It's
Yeah.
I think my music journey is very cool in terms of the people I've got to play on stage with, being a bit younger. I mean, I started playing in a band about 23 years old until now, so 28. But I've managed to play a lot of cool shows and see a lot of cool people and share the stage with some awesome people.
Hell yeah. Well, what I'm understanding right off the bat, we got a couple lifers in chat, folks. We got some people who have been around for a bit. They've been doing their homework. They've really been doing everything in their power to make sure that music is their life, and that's exactly who we want here on the Anatomy Crosscast, let alone who we want to return later in the future if they do so wish. Now, being that we've established an order, there's only two people, right? Which is pretty good for math. But with that in mind, we're going to be going Davie, Ryan for the people part of the podcast, bouncing back and forth between the questionnaire and maybe preferred questions that you guys wish to answer, as that is an instruction later in the Crosscast Inquiry email, as the questionnaire is freaking massive after all these years. So, one thing I do want to kickstart off with, pretty basic one, starting with Davie and then going to Ryan. Take about 10 to 20 minutes, take us back to the very beginning of you becoming a musician, and being that you guys are lifers, being that you guys have been doing music in different ways for a long time. No, I do not expect you to take an hour to get through your life, but honestly, if you want to, I don't mind. And go ahead and just pave us a path as far as who you guys are, how you got into Seek Misery, the bands you were in before, the first instrument you played, that kind of stuff. So, Mr. Davie, if you could do me a favor, take the reins, sir. Take the reins. And let's go ahead and go back in time a little bit. Maybe ignite some nostalgia, like a little lighter to incense or something like that. I don't know. But take us back in time, please.
I'll try and keep this as short as possible because Ryan will tell you I do waffle on a fair bit.
He does. He loves a good waffle.
Yeah, I'll chew someone's ear off. Looking back, my musical journey, I was raised on old school punk, old school hardcore, old school metal. Like my parents were into Sex Pistols, Clash, Ramones, Metallica, AC/DC, all of that, and naturally went through the progression of listening to those bands and then discovering bands like Marilyn Manson, Limp Bizkit, Slipknot, Rammstein, and swapping burnt copies of albums with my school friends. Naturally, there was a further progression into, okay, cool, what is heavier than this? Which led me down the path of Children of Bodom and Cradle of Filth, and then into Shadows Fall. And like we're talking early 2000s, like 2000 to 2003. And then finding bands like Darkest Hour, and then watching that evolution of like old school into new metal, into what was the start of metalcore, and then starting to go to shows, like being old enough to go to actual shows. And where we're from, like I grew up in the same town that Ryan lives in now. We weren't getting regular shows. Like the town or city is a 4-hour drive from Adelaide, which is the main big city in South Australia. So early 2000s, I would say 2004, 2005 was when we started getting local bands from Adelaide and from interstate come and visit and play shows. So there I discovered bands like Cry Murder, Double Dragon, Day of Contempt, the early days of I Killed the Prom Queen, the very early days of Parkway Drive. Like I remember seeing Parkway Drive, I think it was 2004 or 2005, play to 30 people in Whyalla at a football club. And
Interesting.
seeing these bands and going, shit, these guys are from Australia. Like, these guys are from 4 hours up the road in the big city. Ignited something in my brain where I've gone like, if they can do it, then I can do it. Why can't we have a band like that in Whyalla? And then I started jamming with other people. Like I was doing guitar lessons all through high school. I started jamming with other people, started like learning how to write music. And it got to the point where I graduated school. I moved to Adelaide. I ended up linking up with some guys that were my first like real band. And I started touring and writing music in a band called A Dead Silence. And we were a MySpace deathcore era band. So we were active from 2008 right through to 2014. So we were there for the midsection of the MySpace deathcore era, the original MySpace deathcore era, right through to its height, right through to the downfall of that era and into the new era. I spent a lot of my time touring relentlessly, always being broke, never being able to like hold down a full-time job, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Like for me, it was, I'm going to make this work or I'm going to die trying. Once A Dead Silence ended up calling it quits, I bounced around a little bit, just like filling in for bands all around the country. Like I had friends that would hit me up and say, hey, we need a bass player for this show in 6 weeks' time. Can you learn a 30-minute set? And I'd do that and go and play the show. Or we need a bass player for a tour. Say, yep, got bugger all on, like I'll do it. And yeah, it got to the point where I started to not enjoy music from a professional point of view as much as what I had been. And I think I was just, looking back on it now, I was burnt out because I had made music my number one priority for so many years. I kind of let everything else slip and dwindle, and I would see all of my friends getting married, having kids, having careers, earning degrees at university, traveling the world on holiday and seeing things, while my main focus was just to tour as relentlessly as possible with a guitar and play music to crowds, which wasn't a bad thing. I do not regret a single thing that I've done, but I was at that point where I was thinking, like, I'm getting older. I need to solidify myself with a job, and I need to get some qualifications just in case it doesn't work.
Right.
And I ended up having a 10-year break away from touring and playing live. And Ryan and I have been friends for a bunch of years. I kept up with the early days of Seek Misery, and Ryan and I were just talking one day, and one thing led to another, and I agreed to fill in for one show. And at the end of that show, I got off stage and looked Ryan in the eyes and said, I'm in. There's no two ways about it. I'm in, man. Like, I'm back, baby. And yeah, ever since then, we've hit the ground running. We've like piled all of our resources together. And I think with the experience that we have in the band now, especially after bringing in Sam and Tristan, who are also in touring bands, into what Ryan and Skinner had created, has just made this thing like a non-stop engine. Like, we have 5 guys in the band that can write. We have 5 guys in the band that have touring experience. We have 5 guys in the band that all get along, which is the most important thing. And honestly, even more important than that, we've got 5 guys in the band that all have the same goal and all want to make this go as far as humanly possible. And yeah, since joining Seek Misery, we have released our debut album, which we are extremely proud of. And I've joined another band as well, which is under wraps at the moment. So that'll be announced in the next couple of weeks. And we have big plans for 2026 for Seek Misery. Can't really say too much, but we have had a couple of tour offers come through in the emails. We signed with Obsolete Music for all of our bookings. And shout out to Tim and Greenie, because those guys have been an absolute godsend for us. Just their relentless work ethic, and the drive to push their bands as far as possible. And not to mention, like, they're just our homies. Like, they're our gig daddies, like we call them. Big Tim, the gig daddy.
I love to hear it. No.
And yeah, we've made plenty of friends along the way as well. Like, we just got off tour with Pray For Me and Cultists.
Okay.
And yeah, from the moment that we met those guys in the car park of the first show, we all just became super, super tight. And like, it's been 2.5, maybe 3 months now since that tour ended, and we are talking daily with all the boys. We're actually catching up with Cultists this week. They're on tour with Nicolas Cage Fighter playing Adelaide, so I'll be hitting the Guinnesses with the Cultist boys. So
I've been seeing that name bounce around a little bit. Is Cultist local to Australia then?
Yeah, they are. They're from Sydney.
Okay. See, I don't know why. I don't know what it was, but I always got like American impressions from Cultist. But I saw a couple of their posts recently, marketing and promoting what will be their upcoming material, and you know, I had the conversation I did during the Crosscore Patreon exclusive bit, right? How unoriginal sometimes Old English font can be for a logo. Sometimes that's like a big turnoff for me. And I will admit, at first, Cultist was one of those bands like, oh, great, they're just another drippy Old English font deathcore band, like, trying to make a name for themselves. And sure, that's a soulless take, but it's like, you know, it's subjective to the viewer. But after their most recent promo, I'm like, okay, they're actually kind of getting into some more creepy, like, found footage conspiracy theory-esque stuff, and I'm, like, super, super into that. So I am in great anticipation of whatever they plan to do next. I do believe they already have an album or EP out, but I would be keen to get them on the show and continue that. So it's cool to know that not only did you guys share some experience, some time on the road, months on the road, but to confirm for the algorithm, the true counterculture algorithm, that at the very least, like you guys and Cultists and all the bands on that bill, you guys ended up becoming really, really interwoven and almost sewn together into this garment of actual connection, as opposed to just what I've seen over the years, like everybody ever, I think for the sake of promo and for the sake of good marketing, to kind of tether onto that brotherhood culture and that sense of community. They're like, we're going on the road with our homies and this and that. I'm like, do you actually know these people though? Like how, where's the time to get to know all these people all the time? It's just, I guess it might be something beyond me and it might be an ignorant take, but just being honest and putting myself out there. Sometimes I question whether or not some bands are homies with other bands or not, I guess. But no, it's cool to know that you guys are kicking it with Cultist on the level that you are. And yeah, I think, Davie, that is a great introduction so far. Ryan, your turn, sir.
All right. So for me, getting into music and that, I started off with new metal when I was in primary school. So it was Korn and Slipknot and Limp Bizkit. It was only for a very short time. I think I was like grade 3, grade 4 at school, and I think by like grade 5, grade 6, I started getting into a bit more metalcore, and by grade 7 of school, so I was still quite young, I started getting into deathcore. That's when I found like Suicide Silence and Chelsea Grin, and going into high school, I just pretty much listened to pretty much mostly just deathcore, and I just found my love for extreme metal at that point. I started doing vocals when I was in high school. I think I started doing extreme vocals when I was about 15 or 16 years old. That's when I started to try and learn, all self-taught. And from there, it took quite a few years of just doing vocal covers, whether they were on like YouTube or Facebook or whatever at the time. A lot of them are lost relics to me now. I don't know where a lot of them are. But that's just bad cataloguing on my part. But I've done quite a few vocal covers because that was the only way I could do music. As Davie mentioned before, I live 4 hours away from Adelaide, the main city. I live in a smaller town called Wyler in South Australia. We have a population of probably only about 20,000 people. And out of those 20,000 people, there's only a very finite amount of those people that are actually into metal music, let alone extreme metal. It wasn't until about 2018, so I think I was about 21 years old. I connected with someone, he was a bit older, he was close to his 40s at that time, and he was a bit more of a death metal guitarist. He seen me hop up on stage for a local show in Wyler. He saw me just do a small little feature for a band, and apparently turned his back from the bar, and he had to see who the fuck was that. And he come outside afterwards, after the show, and then shook his hand, introduced himself to me. Now it's my good friend David Scholes. From there, we started our first band called Exterminator, which was a bit more death metal, deathcore. First album that we created was a lot more death metal. But we started off just as a two-piece, just trying to create something for 2 years. We had no idea what the fuck we were doing. We had no idea how to record music properly, how to do vocals properly at home, and because we have no studios here where I'm from, and we do, from my experience all the way up to now, I've only ever done home recording, ever. We eventually got to a stage where we took on a second guitarist, and we got a bass player to come down from Adelaide, which wasn't Davie, to fill in and play a couple of shows with us.
I think you asked me.
I think I might have. But our first show I ever played in front of anyone, we played a backyard show at my guitarist David's house, and it was to celebrate our album release at that time, which was in early 2020 called Global Cleanse. We had no drummer. We played to a backing track of drums, and we just filled a couple of eskies full of beer and other alcohol and just invited people around just to come hang out and have a listen. Played our first set just on a shitty PA system, just shit set up, but we were just keen to play a show, play to some people. And from that point, there was a drummer in the crowd, and he spoke to me afterwards. He said, made me sick seeing no drum kit up there. I want to join the band.
Hell yeah.
And there started off my first proper show experiences, going to a few capital cities and that, playing shows with the Exterminator. At that same time, me and the second guitarist, Skinner, we started the project, which is now known as Seek Misery. That started off in the same year in 2020 when we started writing and releasing, which was only ever meant to be a online project, and until about, I think it was 2023, we decided to play our first show, and we played as a three-piece. We played just myself, Skinner, and I had my drummer Raymond at the time play a show. We'd done a show for mental health, so everything made on the show went to Beyond Blue, which is a charity here in Australia. And that was our first show, and it was only meant to be our first and only show. But from there, I got the itch, and I wanted to keep playing more and more as Seek Misery. And at that point, unfortunately, Exterminator had to go on pause, so it felt right to keep pushing this as the main live project myself. From there, as Davie said, like, we played, I think, one other show as a three-piece, and then we had Davie jump up on the stage with us. We just gelled really well together up on stage, and just giving Davie that experience after 10 years of not being on the stage, just seeing that glimmer of light in his eyes just spark up again, be like, I want to be back on this stage again. It's really cool just playing shows just with your mates. And from there, we just had a few just drummers come in and go out, just friends helping us out, just on a show here, show there. And so now we've got a full-fledged 5-piece lineup, which consists of myself, Davie, Skinner, Sam and Tristan. We're also lucky enough to have a secret 6th member. His name's Nathan, who used to play in a Dead Silence with Davie all the way back in the day. He's helped us out on a tour and a one-off Melbourne show as well. He just picks up the songs just like that, learns them in a couple of weeks, and then comes and hangs out with us. And just like every other member of the band, we all just gel together. We're all great friends. Like, we have a good laugh in the van and just hang out, have a few beers at the show, just enjoy our time. And that's pretty much what got us up to now as Seek Misery, as a full-fledged band. And I mean, one other thing is, at that same time of 2020, I did take on quite a lot of music projects at that time. I started off another online project, which was very much black and deathcore, very inspired by Lorna Shore. I do the vocals. My friend Sean, who lives in Connecticut now, in the US, he's a US homie. We started off a band called Arbitrator US. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's my other band. We've been making music for the past 5 years as well, just getting to. It's a funny thing having someone over in America that you make music with, because by the time, as you know, it's midnight there at the moment. By the time he goes to sleep, I'm awake. So I'll send a message during the day, then I go to sleep, and then he'll be awake and he'll send me a message throughout his day. So it's a weird concept to get around, but we've managed to get out 2 full EPs, and we just released another single towards the end of last year. when I found like extreme metal music, like I dove deep into it. I absolutely love it. As you can tell, with so many music projects that I just want to be a part of and contribute to, sing. And that's pretty much what brings us to today, just being able to play shows, create music, and just have fun with friends.
That's beautiful. It's funny that you mentioned that you are one of the creators for Arbitrator, because I've been trying to get that project on the show for like the last 2 years. I've just been smashing the DMs. I'm just like, yo, hello, hi, are you there?
Oh, Ryan can make it happen.
I can try and make it happen. Sean is the driving force of Arbitrator. He is the main creator. I am the secondary of that. I just do a lot of the vocals, help with some of the graphic design for just social media posts and that. But Sean is the main driving force for everything instrumental, which is crazy because he does everything: guitars, bass, drums, orchestra, choir.
Wow.
He gets all that down. He is an absolute mastermind. He's also helped out on the everything Seek Misery drum-wise. He's done everything for us as Seek Misery in terms of the recorded albums and EPs, and he's also helped out on my other project, Exterminator, with album and I think a couple of the songs as well. We're like the singles that we've released. Me and Sean, we're pretty tight homies. I respect the absolute hell out of him. He's a absolute madman. Absolute madman. I love him to death.
Fuck yeah, man. No, it's not only is it like just, yo, you're an Arbitrator, like, but also hearing about Exterminator. Like, I've seen that band dotting around. I have a couple people I've already hosted on the show who followed that band. And again, just like projects I mentioned before, like Cultist, that Davie kickstarted his conversation with or mentioned during his roadmap. Those are all bands that I totally did not think were local to Australia. So to know that they are, it's like, well, of course, as we seem to be gravitating more towards New Zealand and Australia both going into 2026, it's like, if most of the year is bands and artists from Australia and New Zealand, I'm completely okay with that.
We got a lot of talent down here. We got a lot of talent.
The Adelaide, the Australian scene in particular is just thriving at the moment. Like, Hate Complex, our good friends, just released a new song at midnight last night that absolutely slaps. Our homies in Dead Skin released 2 tracks back in November that are just absolutely wild. Like, Australia's killing it. Like,
Australia's killing it.
Archangel are killing it at the moment. Like, we've got bands like Body Prison that are killing it,
yeah.
for lack of a better term. Zeolite killing it at the moment as well. Yeah.
Xenobiotic is back.
Just crazy. Yeah. Some friends that we just met on tour as well, a band from far north Queensland called Same Pains. Not really in the deathcore or metal kind of respect, more like a chaotic kind of hardcore band, but they are so sick and killing it at the moment. Like, the Australian scene is just insane. Like, it's insane how good the Australian scene is at the moment.
Hell yeah. No, I love to
a lot
hear
of
that.
talented music that just dedicated to the craft, and we all just love doing what we're doing there.
Hell
and
yeah.
just making the connections as well.
Actually, and also a big shout out to our friends in Pray For Me as well.
Yeah.
So Pray For Me were on our tour package, and they are some of the best blokes we've ever met, and some of the stuff that they've been releasing is incredible. Like,
yeah, the last EP, it was crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
Jacob's such a good producer, such a good musician. All of the dudes are some of the fucking coolest blokes that you'll ever meet, and I can't wait to go back on tour with those guys.
Pray For Me from Austria, right?
From Australia.
Australia. Interesting. Okay, so it must be.
Yeah.
It's oh wait, you know what? You said Pray For Me, not Pray For Pain. I'm getting into my head. I'm like, oh, we've hosted that band on our show before.
Pray for me.
Pray for me. Okay. Yeah, no, I've seen that. They kind of have
That's our last tour lanyard, so it's like pray for me.
Okay, that's sick. I like that. All right. Well, Davie, I wanted to go back a little bit because I'm actually taking notes for the first time in a long time, just to try to keep track of more information, possibly make the conversation more entertaining and make it seem like I'm actually paying attention, because I'm trying to. So you mentioned that you were in a MySpace band before, earlier in your journey. Was it like a Dead Rising, something like that? What was
A Dead Silence?
God damn it. Okay, A Dead Silence. So I wanted to get that down just to kind of like say that I did. So thank you for helping me get that written down, get that notated. Really, both of you two have gone through one of the next questions that early on in the show, it seemed like I had to manually walk people through to get them to talk about this stuff, which is regarding the scene, right? So I think we can skip question 3, the scene, and skip right over to question 4, location. But before we do that, I'm just going to make sure to check the time. And okay, we're at 36 minutes. I would say 9 minutes. We'll go ahead and get kick started with the location questionnaire, and then going into part 2, we'll continue the commentary regarding location, and then we'll probably get into the second half of the show, amongst other things. This is going to be a quicker one tonight for sure, but I want to get as much information packed in as possible. So, kickstarting question 4, location. Despite all of the bands that we've already hosted from Australia, like I said before, we started this show with To the Grave, which was a really, really good start. It was technically supposed to start with Worm Shepherd and the Stygian Complex, but that just didn't happen. We started with To the Grave, continued later on in time with artists such as Xenobiotic, Shiva, Marty Leith of Dragon Corpse, because he's from Australia, so I count that one. And then later on in time, we continued with a couple other bands that, because probably it's so early in the morning, I'm losing track of. But let's just say we've hosted plenty of bands and talent from Australia, and we hope to host plenty more. So despite all of that, what is something that you can tell the Crosscore or the Crosscast audience about Australia that maybe you think they didn't know about before? Maybe something about the town that you both used to live in, but now Ryan still lives in as Davie has relocated.
Okay. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
I can't really think of anything that people wouldn't already know about us, but I could probably divert that question a little bit and just back up everyone's preconceptions about Australia in the sense of we are all super chill, easy to get along with. For the most part, like, we do love a drink. Like, Aussies can drink beer like no tomorrow and spin a yarn. So we'll like spinning a yarn in Australia is telling stories. Like, we love to just like sit around, shoot the shit, drink beer, have a bit of fun, go home. Australia is not as dangerous as what people think in the States. I'm not throwing a blanket over the Crosscast, but I do think that, like, a lot of your listeners would be from America and Europe. So despite what you think, like, you're not going to get killed by spiders over here or like eaten by a snake or anything like that, we are pretty well like the same as you guys. Like, we live in the suburbs, like, we live in nice cities. Like, we're not all out in the middle of the outback in the red dirt with kangaroos jumping down the street. Like, you do get that, but for the most part, we don't live in areas like that. Like, where Ryan lives and where I grew up, it's very close to being like that, but it's still that whole like little big city kind of vibes. But yeah, like, Aussies, the way to an Aussie's heart is to sit down, have a chat and have a drink. and have a joke.
Oh yeah.
Like, take the piss out of us, let us take the piss out of you, and just have a laugh. Like, we're pretty chill down here.
Hell yeah. Well, one thing I want to quote from the Spotify for Creators app that I have downloaded exactly for comments like this is just in regards to the algorithm, right? So currently 68.3% of our audience, US. So yeah, you're right. But other than that, second place, I didn't see this happening at all. This changed recently. 8.9% of our audience is Russia. 4.1%
Wow.
is Malaysia. But 4.1% is also New Zealand, Poland, Belgium, the Netherlands, Malta, Philippines, UK, Spain, Indonesia, Brazil, and Canada after that. And that's like just going down the list for the 0.5, 0.8. So, to my surprise, we actually have a significant amount of Russian people listening to our show, which is really cool to hear because we've only hosted one Russian band. Like, we hosted a band from Serbia recently, in which during the session, poor Ramil and Nekrion had to correct me multiple times. And no, this is not Siberia. It's Serbia. I'm like, God damn it, sorry. It's a completely separate and sovereign country that's kind of located close to Russia. And I was like, okay, well, I remember Serbia, it's pretty easy to confuse, in my opinion, Serbia and Siberia, especially when the American education system has failed us so. So, was Serbia ever part of like the Soviet Union? Is it one of those countries Putin is trying to take claim to? They're like, no, nothing to do with the Soviet Union either. I'm like, well, now I just feel fucking stupid. So this is why we're having you guys on the show, and we had them educate us a little bit, but nonetheless, right? So far, I don't know, my perception, my perspective on Australia has always been that it's a little bit more, its wildlife is a little bit more hostile and a little bit more niche to like danger or endangerment to its civilians, but it's also a more treacherous landscape. And when most of the continent, to my knowledge, is a desert, like it's a desert with lush jungles that are specific to Australia, but still, most of it's a desert. Well, deserts are very ruthless in and of itself, and even during the winter, the law of the desert is that even during winter, during the day, hot as shit, and during the night, it gets like stone cold for whatever reason, and I think it's really just because of the sands, but my understanding of Australia has always been just more dangerous wildlife. The entire country is basically a desert with some lush forests, and they have a very interesting accent, and I have yet to really put some time into it. But I guess I've always been curious about where the accent comes from. It's such a stupid question to ask, but I'm actually interested in that. It's like, how do you go from British American just, oh, we are from the United Kingdom, and all the Yorkshire shit, and you get to Australia, who also shares that same symbol of the UK flag, but there's a slight extension, right? It's like, okay, so this was a British occupied territory, and for whatever reason, it's almost like the people there made up a dialect, made up an accent, and just people caught along with it or something. That's half the time where my imagination goes, but the thing is, Australia and New Zealand both also have their own indigenous, so it's like there's just different ways to look at Australia from a worldwide perspective, but it's always just been a really fun country. The accent's fun, the people are fun. You guys got that weird lotus-looking building. I can never remember. I know it's in Sydney, but it looks like a lotus.
Yeah, the Opera House. Yeah.
So it's like when I think of Australia, I think of things like Finding Nemo, like, even though there's no Australian accent in there at all. But it seems like a wonderful place, and I'd love to go there one day, and maybe through the Anatomy Crosscast one day we can go there and look to do supernatural or paranormal investigations with people and bands that we've hosted on the show. I know I would love to do that. That's one of the bigger goals, by the way, because you guys asked that question a long time ago. So here's my answer then. we hope to turn this into a game show as well as a paranormal investigation networking thing. So it's like, okay, we had conversations with these people. Now let's go ghost hunt with these people. How fun would that be? So, Davie, thank you for providing your kickstarting commentary as far as like anything that our audience might not know about Australia, anything preconceived. Ryan, what would you offer as far as something fresh for our audience to know about? Maybe about the city that you still remain in. Maybe we can dig into more local small town culture.
Oh, well, I was actually going to mention to your audience and that Australia is more than just our East Coast, which is just Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. A lot of people love going to the East Coast, and up in the central part of Australia and to the west, we don't get a lot of love at all. It is more of your perception of it is completely flat dirt desert out this way, which it's kind of getting towards, but we've got beautiful beach towns pretty much all along the coast. I would say there's a lot of talented bands in each country, like each country town, should I say. And a lot of bands that come over, they usually only ever do a Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne run, and then call that an Australian tour. That's just like touring like the east side of America and being like, oh, that's our American tour. Like,
it's one of our biggest pet hates. It is. Drop an announcement and say Australian tour announcement coming, and then they'll drop the announcement and it'll just be Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and you're going to 3 states along the east coast. What about everywhere else?
Yeah,
fair enough.
But the concept it's harder to get out to where South Australia and Western Australia and the Northern Territory and even further down south, which is the only little island itself, which is Tasmania. But
Tasmania,
when bands come over, I'm still yet to go. It's meant to be very lush and green, along with the whole pretty much east coast of Australia. It's all pretty lush and green and beautiful beach towns. And then once you start coming over to the west a bit, that's where it starts becoming a bit more desert and a whole lot of nothing. But we still have, again, beautiful beach towns in these smaller regions, and we just don't get enough love. We don't get enough love here in the central Australia and out in the west, because there's all great bands. Like I don't know if you heard of the band. Well, I'm assuming you would. Make Them Suffer.
Yeah, of Perth.
Yeah.
Perth, baby.
Yeah, they're from Perth, so Western Australia. And for them to be in the position they are now as a giant metalcore band, I know they started off a bit more deathcore on Never Bloom, which was my opinion, their best album, absolutely. They're from Perth. They made it work from the complete opposite side of Australia. That's like I think Australia is pretty much like the width of the United States. That's like pretty much trying to travel all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast just to play shows, just to get your name out there.
That's how you know that our maps are being fucked with too, and they've been fucked with for a long time, because like Australia is preconceived as such a smaller nation that's just like tucked away somewhere in the Pacific. They couldn't even figure out where the fuck they wanted to go, and they're like, yeah, New Zealand is like southwest of it, kinda, but who fucking cares anyway? And then it just continued on. I'm like, dude, like actually scale these countries to their actual size, please and thank you. That way we're not regarding these entire nations and countries as like, oh, the cute little island over there where they talk about shrimps on the Barbie and this and that. I'm like, motherfucker, you're just making us all look like idiots now. Or at least, the people that taught us and gave these maps. I'm like, come on, man, scale that shit, scale it up. Enlarge it, fatten that,
It is a large continent, man. I can't remember how long the plane ride is just to get from like Melbourne, which is on the east coast, not at the furthest point, all the way to Perth. I think that's still like a 12 to 14 hour flight. It's a
really
crazy long flight. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fucking long. Yeah.
An entire half day to get across the country. I don't even think it takes that long, technically, to get across the United States. Is Australia bigger than the United States? What the fuck?
They'll be pretty close to scale, I think. I reckon they're pretty close.
Man, that is wild. The time zone differences, too. Like, literally flying or traveling by plane is just time travel. That's what we civilians, that's the closest we civilians get to time travel. I can't even imagine how that must work for higher up people. They're just like, oh yeah, we're just going to fly over to Australia today for lunch. I'm like, motherfucker, stop polluting the ozone. Like, stop it. No, it's great. That's great. So what you're letting us know then is that Southern and Western Australia, except for, breakthrough bands like Make Them Suffer, there's like a whole entire world that a lot of people that visit there have no fucking clue about.
That's true. It's very true.
Well, hopefully then one day, as per these podcast conversations, these first date conversations, like I mentioned before, imagine if the first place we go to do a paranormal investigation with the band that we've hosted on the show from Western or Southern Australia, right? What if we just specifically go to Western Australian or Southern locations first before we even East? All the bands are like, where are you going? We just like fly over them. It's like, we gotta give these places attention first, and we just go to these abandoned asylums or, go hunt for Australian cryptids and investigate the Australian cryptid zoology. That's something else I probably have to ask about, because with the help of Joshua Bain and Kahi from Depths, we learned a little bit about the Maori cryptid zoology. I have no idea about anything going on in Australia other than what actually exists and still scares people equally as much as monsters. So, do you guys have to, not have to, do you know of any West or Southern Australian cryptid zoology or even urban legends that have managed to survive up until, into a quarter of the way into the 21st century?
We have like our own Aboriginal people, and obviously they were part of this land well before we came here and colonised it. They have their own essentially stories, which we learnt like a few through primary school. I'm sure Davie was probably the same. They're just Aboriginal stories, just they got story time. But a lot of I remember partially. I don't remember him that well, but I remember there was one story which I thought was like pretty gnarly, that's pretty scary for for like a traditional landowner to be like, oh, there's like, this giant face in the sky that is like judging them at all time or whatever. It's all pretty crazy. Yeah. And it's like very vague in my memory, but I just remember something and I'm like, what am I working right now?
Return the slab! Return the slab!
There's so many different Aboriginal tribes in Australia. They all have their own little regions, their own languages, their own story times, but they go pretty much across the entire of Australia as well.
Okay. So let me have you relieve our audience and me of this ignorance. New Zealand is to the Maori as Australia is to the what?
Is this Aboriginal? The land?
Yeah. We, as Australians, our Indigenous people are referred to as Indigenous, and it's more so because there are so many different cultures within the Indigenous culture of Australia.
Okay. In that case, it's
so each state, each state and each region has their own Indigenous people that live in those regions. And one really cool thing that's happening in Australia at the moment is a lot of our capital cities, like your Sydney, your Brisbane, your Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, we're all starting to not only use the European name for each city or each town, but we're also starting to use the Indigenous names as well.
Wow.
And yeah, there's like a lot of respect towards our Indigenous cultures in Australia right now too. So like it's definitely a thing to be proud of.
Hell yeah. No, I love that. Well, I understand why you guys provided the answers that you did, because Brave, which is a search engine I'm using as of recently, it's a lot less surveyed than Google Chrome, but Brave is quoting that there are more than 500 distinct Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups in Australia. So yeah, that would probably be a pretty freaking packed conversation to have, just attempting to list even a couple of those. But nonetheless, I think it's really cool to hear that a lot of the capital cities, a lot of the reputable cities in Australia are taking a similar approach in recognizing the Aboriginal, Torres Islander nations and tribes that have existed well before that of British colonization and occupation. And hopefully, in the future, that is the reason that more bands similar to Alien Weaponry in being indigenous and being recognized on a global scale in reference to their country, Alien Weaponry for New Zealand, hopefully in the future then, as they become more comfortable and they feel more recognized, they feel more validated, maybe we'll see plenty of these bands that are big enough to where they become pop culture media and kind of mainstream media, recognized again on a global scale. 500 tribes, though, I would say that might be about the same number, if not more, than the indigenous tribes we have here in the U.S. Maybe that's a good combination of both the Canadian indigenous as well as the U.S. indigenous. That is a big number. That is a lot of different subcultures. It's crazy to know that there are so many of those older predating British colonization cultures for all these different countries around the world. I was learning from Elijah Craig of a Los Angeles-based hard rock band called Floodlit, that he is actually, starting the whole band, which is their first song, Amma, is really cool. But he was over in formerly Burma, now Myanmar, for a couple years. And of course, I was trying to be funny and I never mentioned it in session. But he mentioned that there are so many languages and so many tribes in Myanmar alone that there's a mountain people, there is a river people, and et cetera, et cetera. The first thing I thought of was Avatar. I'm like, the four nations used to live together in harmony. And I'm like, stop it. Because he's trying to have this conversation with me, and that's the first thing I think of. I'm like, shame on me. That's bad. But also, it might have been funny if I mentioned it in session, as long as it wasn't, too just like, the four nations of Avatar, right? It's like, no, don't fucking say that. But it's, over time, it continues to be fascinating learning from learning from people in very different countries than where I am right now, more about indigenous culture local to their region than I ever did in high school. It's kind of a disgrace, and it makes it no surprise to me why we are so behind in education and so ahead in pride or arrogance, right? So, gentlemen, thank you for letting me know about these things regarding Australia and everything that really I have yet to learn, as in the future I hope to maybe travel there one day. Let's see. One of the questions I love to ask, though, in regards to location, this is the C, 4C. Would you say you are connected to this day to where you were born and raised? If not, why? And this is just speaking as people.
For me, I'm not really connected to where I was born and raised on a level outside the band. So I was born and raised in Whyalla, grew up in Whyalla, I left like as soon as I could, finished high school, got in the car, left, went to Adelaide and forged a life in the big city. And for me, like Whylla's not one of those places that I do visit very often. In fact, there's like really only 3 reasons why I do go back, and that's for band stuff, for family stuff, and for the unfortunate event of like a funeral. But I just feel like there's not really that much there for me anymore. Like almost all of my friends have moved away and are living in the big city. And then joining Seek Misery and strengthening my friendship with Ryan and forging like really good friendship with Skinner as well. It's kind of brought me back to my roots in that sense. But like outside of music, like I don't have that connection or longing to, I want to go back. I have to be there. I want to experience the place and stand on the beach and smell the smells and all of that. Like I'm not connected to the place in that sense. So yeah.
Well, Ryan, because you're
you,
still
Ryan?
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm still connected here. Of course, I'm connected here. No, I love this place. It's my home. I've got family here. I've still got my friends here as well. But I've got friends, across Australia at this point. I've got friends like Davie and high school friends that have moved to Adelaide. I still keep in regular contact with them. I've got my life here, essentially. I've got my home, my house. We've got a great location where we're right on the beach as well. There's not much around us, which is probably like the only downfall of it. For me to go see a lot of concerts and that, things I love. I have to travel 4 hours to Adelaide and 4 hours back just to enjoy a 3 to 4 hour concert. It's a long turnaround time.
It's a full day right
there. Yeah, it is. I'm connected to this place and I love it. At some point I'll probably move up to Adelaide where Davie is, but for the moment being, this is where I'm meant to be for the next few years at least.
Hell yeah. Now, a lot of people in the past have been like, no, I don't really have any national pride, that type of thing. But I always love to ask, just to say I did. Do you think that the country or the cities that you have lived in have influenced the way that you have written music? And if so, why? How?
Not at all.
Not at all.
To be honest, not in my personal musical journey. Anyway, like I'm a proud Australian. Like I love being an Aussie and I love living in Australia. But musically, I don't think like the Australian way of life or the Australian culture or anything like that has like influenced anything to do with the music that I've personally been a part of. And I mean, even in Seek Misery stuff, like there's nothing like truly Australian, is there, Ryan?
No, not really. I mean, Seek Misery just dives a bit more in the depths of just my own personal hell, pretty much. Yeah, I pretty much disagree with Davie on that one. Like, again, I'm a proud Australian myself as well. Love the country and the land I'm on, but yeah, I don't think my music is influenced by it at all.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. And therefore, the search continues for a band who's like, I don't even know how else to describe it except like Aussie, like that type of shit. I have yet to run into a band like that, and maybe I never will, and maybe that's a good thing. 'Cause imagine you making your band, the entirety of your identity. Sure, all the members can be from one place; they can be from Australia, but it's like, do you really want to be the Aussie like beatdown band? Do you like? So I guess
there is a couple of bands that are like that. I don't know if you've heard of the band called Dead Kelly. If you do, go look up a few of their film clips on YouTube. They're all like animated, but it's the most over exaggerated version of being an Australian that there is. And
I think there's some crossover, and the guys from Dead Kelly are in a band called King Parrot as well.
Oh,
Yeah, yes,
okay.
they are.
I know King Parrot.
Yeah.
Just for context.
Okay, sweet. Well,
But yeah, if you want to have like a little bit of a laugh and just like kind of see Aussie culture in a very like humorous way, check out them.
hell yeah.
And also, if we want to throw in another name, we'll throw another name in the hat that is actually doing really well, and it's a really cool thing that they do. Is there's a band here in Adelaide called Ecosa, and they incorporate Indigenous instruments into metal.
Oh my god,
So
that sounds so sick.
Yeah. They're like, they play like a style of like progressive metal, but they're incorporating like Indigenous didgeridoo.
That's cool.
And yeah, they're like super cool dudes. Like we played a show with them last year, and yeah, they were just like super chill, real nice guys. Yeah, and honouring Indigenous culture in Australia. Like they're
And see,
all
maybe
power to them. Like, and they make it work too. Like it's so cool.
it doesn't seem corny. It's like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty sick.
Oh, it is. It is.
Hell yeah. See, and that's the thing too. Maybe because of that question being in there, maybe I've been chasing after bands like that for a long time without realizing it, because maybe just exaggeratedly passionate bands who like want to make it well known that they're from this part of the world is like intriguing to me, because how can you make that not sound corny, without, for example, incorporating Indigenous instruments, representing that culture. So I guess what I said before, there is a band like that exists, that being Ecosa. So if you could do me a favor, gentlemen, and at any point, even during the session, really, I don't mind, go ahead and send me a link for Ecosa and like all, if you can remember them, right? No pressure. Some of the bands that you've mentioned already, because I mean, the more opportunities we have to slingshot with, I think the better. But I do believe that that will be the end of the first segment of the public domain Crosscast in our first date conversation with Seek Misery. We will be right back. Alrighty, welcome to what will be the second and final part of the first date Crosscast session with Adelaide, more or less, Southern Australia local metallic hardcore / bare bones deathcore band Seek Misery. We have bassist Davie and vocalist, both also co-managers of the band, but vocalist Ryan. We've had a lovely conversation tonight so far. They got some really cool stuff cooked up, but hell, these boys tonight, this morning for me, have already recommended so many other awesome bands local to Australia that I hope to slingshot off of this conversation with. And hell, chances are we're going to be doing a lot of Australian, New Zealand local crosscasts this year, a lot of overnight sessions. But if it means that the Anatomy Crosscast, Sean Cross, Finn the Orc King, or Tony Slam as entities, as individuals, personalities, as long as maybe there's a chance that more of that is being echoed and whispered about across this awesome country that it is Australia, or New Zealand otherwise, that's all I care about, is just getting more people involved. And maybe, as opposed to what I mentioned before, when I mentioned in the algorithm 68% of our audience being located in the US, and then second place 8.3% in Russia, if we can manage to flip that again and get a whole bunch of people, maybe even 20% of our audience in the near future based in Australia or New Zealand, that's all I care about. That really is all I care about. But welcome back, everyone. This will be the band part of tonight's questionnaire. And I plan to make this as brief as possible, as it is getting closer to 3 a.m. for me and closer to 8 or 9 p.m. for the boys over in Australia. So, clickbait questionnaire, okay? Some of the most basic questions that really inspired the beginning of the show, as Davie asked about in our Crosscore exclusive segment. Where did the name come from?
That one I'm going to pass on to Ryan.
Yeah, so Seek Misery, just like a lot of bands, like you just kind of brainstorm ideas and you try and mold it to what your sound is as well. Because you're trying to make something that sounds original and something that represents your band in the best way possible. With such a influx of bands over the years, and that there's a lot of names already taken essentially. But we landed on Seek Misery because we felt like that represented the band and its lyrical content and its themes and vibes of it best way possible, pretty much. Like Seek Misery, like it's just diving deep into that emotional level, into that mental level of the human psyche, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Hell yeah.
And it's a cool name too.
It is a cool name. No, I like it. So in your Spotify bio, this is something new. You guys quote yourselves as Steel City Misery. Quote, for fans of international heavyweights such as Amir, Knocked Loose, The Acacia Strain, and Alpha Wolf, Seek Misery is a crushing force in the South Australian heavy music scene. Combining elements of metalcore and deathcore with a new metal-inspired twist and provocative, emotionally charged lyrics, the band features a lineup of seasoned musicians from other well-established current bands such as Exhuminator, A Dead Silence, Chrome Cage, Arbitrator, US, and 2319. That's... Is 2319 a fucking Monsters, Inc. reference?
It is.
That's amazing. That's great. Showcasing not only a wealth of talent, I like that, but a proven history of live and touring experience. So, I would say then that my subgenre diagnoses during the beginning of both of these sessions so far, that being, you know, more like metallic hardcore with some deathcore elements. If you were, of course, as per the clickbait, obligated to attempt to isolate Seek Misery to a more broader subgenre, would it be metallic hardcore? Would it be new metalcore? Would it be just deathcore with no gimmicks until further notice? Like, what subgenre do you guys think you would denominate Seek Misery to?
That's a real hard one. That's a real hard one. Just based on how we write our music and the themes of each song, that's what makes it so hard, because there's some songs that are very metalcore heavy inspired. There is a couple of songs very inspired by metallic hardcore with a lot of two-step sections, whereas the metalcore...
Oh, there he goes. Yeah,
we've had a dropout.
I mean, he let me know, so that's all that matters. Davie, continue.
Personally, I would honestly just turn around and say that we're a deathcore band. I know exactly where Ryan's going with his answer, and I do agree. Like, if you go through our backlog, you can definitely hear like a lot of deathcore. You can hear a lot of metalcore. There's a couple of songs that are like really influenced by Deftones. So we've got like a lot of shoegaze kind of influence in those songs. But also like on the album as well, we've got a song called Distorting, Twisting, Bending and Bleeding, which was very well influenced by like traditional hardcore. Okay. So if you listen to that song, yes, it is like a metalcore, deathcore song, but you can hear a lot of like Terror or Trapped Under Ice in there.
Okay.
And like a lot of us are hardcore kids at heart, but always having that love for like heavier and more extreme kind of music. Like I've always bounced around with different kind of genres, but I've always been like predominantly either deathcore or like hardcore. Like Terror is probably one of my favorite bands of all time. I mean, I'm wearing a hardcore shirt now, like Iron Mind from Australia. are like right up there for me as well. Bands like Stick to Your Guns and stuff like that. But also having that love for, you know, your MySpace era deathcore, like that is where I cut my teeth. So I would probably just say, like, if somebody was to come up to us now and go, what genre is your band in 5 seconds or less, I would just turn around and just say deathcore band.
All right. And that's completely understandable, as over time, especially getting now a little over a quarter into the 21st century, there are so many core subgenres in the scene that it kind of gets fatiguing over time, to be honest. Like shoegaze, you know, that's definitely metal, but it's meant to be, in my opinion, more flirty, more groovy, more hangover induced, I guess. Bands like Deftones, bands like Loathe, but also like I can kind of hear shoegaze in the Plot in You, for example, but they're mainly a metalcore band. And I think to me they kind of peaked with their 2019 record Dispose, because I just designated that as the hangover metalcore album of all time. It just has it had a very unique taste to it, and it still does. I'm seriously hoping that their next full-length album will be a little more prolific and outstanding than that of Swan Song. Swan Song didn't really do it for me, but that's just me.
Well, if you go back to our catalog, like on our EP, Let the Angels Take Me, we have a song called Buried in Your Skin, which leans like right into the shoegaze aspect while still remaining a little bit heavy.
Okay.
And even before that, on the EP Pain, the closing track, which we actually use as a closer on our live set, so it's called I Still Feel Your Ghost. That is very shoegaze as well, and we were getting a lot of good reviews from people saying like, wow, like a heavier band that's in like incorporating shoegaze, like why don't you lean into that a little bit more? And it's always something that we wanted to do. We were a little bit apprehensive as to how much shoegaze we were going to put in there and when was the right times, etc. But on this new album, like the first single we released, Flesh and Rust, like we have written that song and structured it in a way that it's very shoegaze heavy while still being a deathcore song.
Interesting.
And then you go through the rest of the album, and even the title track for the album, Everyone You Love Will Leave, like you can still hear influence of shoegaze in that, but it's pulled back a little bit. And for us, it was always like finding the right balance and how to incorporate it at the right time.
Absolutely. No, I this is why I don't listen to albums before doing these crosscasts anymore, is because I get all these insights. I get all these ideas and philosophies, the context really, before ingesting the music. And yeah, granted, sometimes I just put video game gameplay behind, or I get sidetracked and I'm not actually paying attention to the music, and I need to get better at doing that if I want to be a fucking music journalist. But oftentimes, even if I don't have like a clickbait face or reaction, I like to say that I still am able to appreciate the music, and a deathcore band with nu metal and shoegaze influence from Australia, that's just a packed sentence in and of itself for an American who ingests all the pretty basic music that I do as I continue developing my taste palette, my flavor palette. So I look forward to listening to this record. I really do. Now,
well, in terms of the nu metal side of the influence and description for us, incorporating nu metal into the tracks was also in the same vein as the shoegaze. It was like, how are we going to incorporate this at the right time when it's going to make sense? But also stripping the songs back to a point where they weren't going to be over the top, undigestible, and keeping things simple, because I think that's something that nu metal did really, really well back in the day, was like the songs were boppy, they were bouncy, but they were also very simple.
Yes.
And that was another thing with this album, was like, where do we put the shoegaze and make it work? But also, when do we strip it back to a point where it is simple enough to still be bouncy and energetic and have a little bit of flair? So I think with this album, we kind of hit the nail on the head with the way that we've composed the songs, and the songs have been written. Like, the simple bits are simple and digestible. The techie bits are techie and have flair, but are still simple enough that they can be digestible. Like, it's not like your run-of-the-mill technical death metal or technical deathcore band where you've got guitar solos and sweeps going over everything and hammer-ons everywhere and what we like to call a riff salad.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean that with the utmost respect as well, because I come from a technical deathcore band. Like, A Dead Silence was one of those bands where we would play 5 minute, 6 minute, 7 minute songs, and there were no repeating riffs and no repeating breakdowns, and it was just a riff salad. Like, we would have 6 or 7 different riffs in one song.
Huh.
And going from that to a new way of thinking and a new way of writing and producing with Ryan has really opened my eyes to a more mature kind of style of songwriting. And this new album is a total reflection of how all of us have grown and matured as musicians, but also how the band has evolved from the first release. And you can tell, like, every EP and every single that you listen to up until the album has its own sound and its own feel, and this album encapsulates the feel and the sound of all of those releases, but with the new flair on top and with a more mature way of writing, a more mature way of producing, more mature way of thinking, and everything that I said before about encapsulating essences of shoegaze, essences of nu metal, a lot of deathcore, throwing in some traditional hardcore in there, and a whole shitload of metalcore.
Fuck yeah. No, it's cool. And, you know, it might be considerably redundant, the dialect, the language of sound and creating a new sound, creating a new environment and vibe, single by single, EP by EP, and then leading into an album. And hell, all of these singles and EPs, to the best of my understanding, looking through the Spotify catalog, everything before Everyone You Love Will Leave was completely separate from that of the new album. So it's like, of course, from an outsider perspective, people could claim that it's redundant, the way of calling it like individual, or each of these things have their own sound. But it's like, also the attention span of people in the modern day and age is rather redundant as well. Like, so I keep that in mind and try not to like have too much of a hash out, if you will. That's not what I'm trying to get at. It's more like, it seems that people don't really have the patience to do that these days. And I mean, I get it. There's so many artists and bands around the world to consume, and Friday is release day for hundreds of bands potentially at a time. So it's definitely hard to keep up, and that's why, for example, this show continues to become a little bit more difficult with each session that we release, but still love doing it. Don't know why I felt the need to say that, but whatever, right? So, for you personally, as an individual, as a bassist, what, in your opinion, is the most important part about writing and contributing what you do to each track for Seek Misery after you join the band, compared to maybe your background of ruthless, no repeating riff, technical deathcore back during the MySpace era, etc. Like, how did your approach change when you started writing music with the guys for releases like Everyone You Love Will Leave?
That is a little bit of a complex answer to give. If we rewind all the way back to the MySpace days, like, we would have to meet up in a jam room and write songs in person. Like, we'd all have to be sitting there writing together, and like, it was a tedious procedure, like getting 5 guys to all be available at the time to all meet up and then sit there for 5, 6, 7 hours throwing ideas at each other and going, yep, cool, this is sick, let's chuck that in. And then at the end of the night, you're expected to play the song that you've written in one day and go like, oh, well, I can't remember the first riff, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it was a hard thing. And fortunately enough, like, my guitarist in A Dead Silence, who is the guy that fills in for Seek Misery, like our unofficial 6th member, he was very proficient in, like, Guitar Pro. So he would go home and he would tab everything out and send it over to all of us. And, you know, like, he did a lot of writing in his own time as well. So he would just come up with full songs and then just give them to the rest of the guys. And that era was all about play as fast as you can, play as technical as you can, chuck in a guitar solo and try and do something that another musician can't do. Like, it was always that, for lack of a better term, like competition. Who can play the fastest? Who can play the heaviest? Who can do these insane guitar sweeps? Who can do this absolutely phenomenal guitar solo? And by the end of that, like, the songs were 6 minutes, 7 minutes at times. Like, if you go back and if you listen, like, to A Dead Silence's first EP, like, you'll hear that and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But at that time as well, like, we were coming up while Thy Art Is Murder were releasing Infinite Death. Right. And then you had bands like Signal the Firing Squad, and you had Aversion's Crown first starting out, and Make Them Suffer first starting out, and it was just a completely different scene back then as it is today, in that sense. Like, comparing the sounds that all those bands had at that time to what they sound like now, like, there's been that natural evolution. And in terms of, like, my musical journey, and when it comes to, like, throwing ideas out and writing and recording and composing, we've all had that natural progression as well, where we've gone from MySpace era, myself, into, like, the 2010s, into the late 2010s, into the 2020s to now, and we've seen all these bands evolve and do things a different way, that now we can kind of comprehend what sounds good and how to strip things back so that they're digestible. And I think that's a big thing when you're appealing to not only your own audience, but also, like, new audiences, is how can you make it palatable and digestible for people? Because you don't just want to be like your run-of-the-mill deathcore band, because someone will look online and they'll go, all right, let's search Seek Misery, and they'll say Seek Misery deathcore, and they'll go, oh, okay, well, this sound like every other band. So for us, it's like, how are we going to appeal to a lot of these bands while sticking true to our roots, but also setting ourselves aside?
Right.
And one of the biggest things with Seek Misery is we don't want to be pigeonholed into just one genre. Yes, we do want to be the heaviest band possible. We want to write the stuff that we love. We want to write the songs that we would listen to if we were a fan. But also, let's chuck in some shoegaze.
Yeah.
hell, let's chuck in some EDM in there. Let's chuck in some rap. Like, we just want to do what we want to do. But, like I said, appeal to people, make things palatable, make things digestible. And yeah, like 2025, like none of us, well, not none of us, a lot of us don't live in the same city, but also having 5 guys that write, like Ryan writes a lot of stuff for Seek Misery, like 90% of the stuff. Like he will program guitars, program bass, program drums, come up with the skeleton of a song, send it over to us in a Dropbox, and we all make changes. We'll listen through and we'll go, yep, that's cool. Let's take that riff. Let's take this. Let's take that breakdown. Let's compile into all these other ideas. Or because Ryan's that good,
Right.
It's a full song, man. Like, that's fucking sick. Let's keep that. But yeah, like Ryan writes a lot of Seek Misery. Skinner, our other guitarist, he's also playing in Chrome Cage, a hardcore band. So he's got one foot in the hardcore scene and the other foot in the deathcore scene. You know, like he's bridging the gap between the hardcore side and the deathcore side. Sam and Tristan both come from 2319, so they're traditionally a beat-down hardcore band. And both of those guys like are proficient at writing, sorry. And then myself, like coming from that MySpace era into the modern day, like I like to, with my ideas, bring a little bit of that MySpace era into Seek Misery.
Right.
While also embracing the future and not just falling back into the old ways. So it's more like bridging the gap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, exactly. And like I said, like earlier in the podcast, I've joined another band that's not announced at the moment, and like the sound of that band is completely different to Seek Misery. So it's more of like a traditional metalcore, while also being on the outskirts of deathcore.
Interesting.
Kind of sound. So for me, it's like I've got 2 bands that are within the same genre, but also like separate enough that you could also call them 2 different styles of music.
Right, right. Well, I mean, my understanding so far of Seek Misery, especially with the imagery and the way that you guys have been doing your music videos, which I have yet to indulge onto, and really that was one of the premises, right, of us getting this podcast arranged in the first place, was getting Dane Evans, who featured on one of your first opening songs for Everyone You Love Will Leave, getting him on to here and be like, hey, what's up, Dane? He's like, hey, what's up, Con? Like, but at the same time, like, I see the imagery, I see the way you guys do your music videos, and I can definitely say that between this other project that you have yet to disclose and Seek Misery, I already get like a more grimy vibe from Seek Misery. It's just more dark. It could very similar to a currently solo project called Anguish and Slave, based here in the United States, with the ghostwriter instrumentalist, I think, in a European nation. That is supposed to be like Darko US deathcore, just like unhinged. Yeah. It's like there's no way this can be played by real people type deathcore with nu metal influence, and then a little bit of MySpace as well. Because who doesn't love MySpace deathcore? There's a reason a subgenre, a period of time of deep underground counterculture was given the denominational label of a social media platform. Like, imagine if it was like Facebook metalcore instead, which I'm sure was a thing, but that probably fizzled out, and then MySpace deathcore like kind of took that spot. There's a reason it's called that, and it's because the music was just so unhinged back then. It was full of samples. It was fresh. Separating that from this other project you plan to do, I have a feeling it's going to sound more like Victims from Chicago, if you've ever heard of them. They're really sick. Their best album so far to me has been Volume 3, Halfway Happy, in which that was my introduction to like heavy hip-hop and EDM influence, especially for an opening track, all the features on that album, the merch that they do, their whole approach is really fascinating. But Victims is like the first thing I think of when you mention metalcore that kind of cusps on deathcore, but it's not like, yeah, we're a metal deathcore band. It's like, you can't really do that.
Yeah.
So instead, heavy metalcore is what I've heard, at least labeled with them. So I look forward to hearing whatever that project might be. And of course, we can always just keep that on the down low, and you can send me some shit, and I can be like, yeah, it sounds pretty cool. But with that in mind, I think the remaining thing that I would want to do tonight is go under the skin of Everyone You Love Will Leave. Am I to assume that Ryan is the lyricist for this album?
Ryan is the lyricist.
Okay. So with him no longer in chat for the night, I do think what would be best is if, for now, we conclude this Crosscast, and or at least conclude that part of the podcast, and have you just answer a couple questions that would be in the concluding half, and I'll go ahead and edit it accordingly. So,
absolutely.
With the time that you spent tonight, or this afternoon, later this afternoon, over in your time on the show, what did you think of your experience on the Anatomy Crosscast? Did you enjoy it? Were there any weak points? Honest critique.
No, I've had fun. To be honest, man, like I just love sitting my ass down on a chair and having a chat.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, like you're actually our first podcast from the States, which is cool. And you know, it's a way for us to break into your market on a different level. Like, we do have a lot of monthly listeners, and to be honest, a lot of our fan base is in the United States. But we haven't actually had the chance to sit down and have a chat and break into the US from a podcast perspective.
Right.
So people can hear the music, and a lot of people like the music, but they don't necessarily like know us or know the story, or, you know, they might have questions that they think, oh, I'd love to ask them that, and this is a great opportunity to be able to do that, and I look forward to a lot more podcasts in the future. I don't think there's been any weak points, other than the time zone difference. The time zone difference is a pain in the ass, you know, like you poor bugger, it's after midnight and you're probably wrecked, and for us, 8:30 p.m. like coming up on 9, and you know, like we're getting ready to eat dinner.
Yeah, honestly, that's been the challenge that I've gladly taken on since April of 2021. I mean, hell, that first podcast session was definitely not midnight my time, and I really do appreciate former member Tom Cadden and continuing member Justin. I always fucking confuse his name. It's either Justin or Jack Simeone. I'm pretty sure it's Justin. And I quoted him as Jack in the first episode. I'm like, good fucking job, dude. But I remember that first session definitely was not midnight my time. So these guys were fucking throwing out a bone for me, and I really appreciate them because that's what started the show. But whether Spain, Russia, Indonesia, Malaysia, fucking the island of Malta, it doesn't really matter where it is. If other and this is not to be like, yeah, fuck these other shows, but it's more like, if other podcasts don't have the patience, don't have the time, despite maybe the more abundant financial resources they have to do this, if I am the only one taking on the challenge of jumping in between time zones, fucking up my sleep schedule for the sake, again, of more intimate and authentic conversation, getting to know musicians all around the world, I'll do it 100 times more. I'll do it basically until I'm done with the music industry, and at that point, there will be a very, very, there will be a very headlining crash out, like national news or something.
It's a great attitude to have.
Right.
100%. It's a great attitude to have, and like from a musical perspective as well. Like, don't just join a band and expect things to like fall in your lap. Like you have to be prepared to do things to make things happen. Like if you're not getting show offers, like send 100 emails out to every promoter around the country. Like tell people who you are, tell people you're keen. Like if you have to play shows for free, play shows for free. Like get in the DMs of other bands and say, hey, I've got a band starting, like I'd love to open for you, etc., etc. Like you need to be prepared to put in the hard yards and to talk to people, to network with people, to ask questions, put yourself out there. And like you said, man, you're up past midnight to talk to us here in Australia. Like it's the right attitude to have. So
yeah,
I commend you on that. So thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. And I appreciate your appreciation. It just goes full circle and goes in a Ouroboros, if you will. And, I mean, what I can say confidently is that I have at least invested 100 to even, I mean, we haven't had that many 4-hour podcasts, but it definitely feels like that sometimes. I can definitely say that I've at least invested 100 to 200 hours into this show. And that's just recording the sessions. That doesn't even include editing and getting into these newer, more complicated processes that I'm trying to do. That way, maybe people are like, damn, this guy's been doing this for a long time. Here's $3 of my money. I'm like, thank you. Like, if I can get that in droves, that would be great. If I could make this my job and have this be the more boring part of being a music journalist or a traveling music journalist, a traveling podcaster, whatever the case may be. The ideas are there, and I'm willing to make it happen. It's just, every now and then I'm like, man, how much longer? How much longer do I need to do these like 3-4 hour overnight sessions before I get a sponsor or before people maybe start taking the show more seriously? Not even just like, when am I going to start making money? Because that's when you get lost in the sauce. That's when you forget the reason you're here. And the reason I'm here is just to get to know people. I don't stop talking. My brain doesn't stop running. And as per Dane Evans, one of my favorite people, he quoted in our Everyone's a Murderer session, create more than you consume. What do I create more than I consume? Conversation. Okay? And that's exactly why we're here. So, as per your positive critique, in which I cannot wait to get Ryan's critique, I'm not going to assume it's positive, as well as get an Under the Skin session done and do track-by-track lyrical analysis for Everyone You Love Will Leave later on in time. Despite all the bands that you've sent me links for, thank you. No one's really done that before, even when I asked them to do. But these sessions are...
Thank you very well.
What bands would you recommend that we get onto the Anatomy Crosscast here in the near future, sometime in 2026? We already got The Weight of Sound. Pardon me. Xenobiotic will be coming back eventually. We're trying to get Infested Entrails as our first Australian slam band on the show. And then, Exiled from Agartha, because that dude apparently is an ex-member of Thy Art Is Murder. He wants to jump on the show and talk about a full-length album that he's currently cooking up. So other than those 4 bands, who either local to Australia or anywhere really around the world would you want to see on the show, and why?
Definitely throw Pray For Me and Cultists onto the show, just because they're the best blokes, some of our best mates. Hate Complex, once again, some of our best mates. Maybe the guys from Deadskin. They're always keen for a chat. They're a sick band, such a sick band. There's just like an absolute wealth of bands around Australia at the moment. There's probably almost too many to name. I would say Zeolite.
Okay.
If you can get hold of the guys, maybe try and get Zeolite on the show. Yeah, it's like the Australian scene right now is just insane. Like if you went onto Encyclopedia Metallium and pigeonholed it to Australia, I'm sure you'd have about 99 pages or more.
I think two other bands I can think of off the top of my head would be Ironstone and Cenobia. Those bands are Australian. Zenobia is like a masked female-led project that's like supposed to be like Ginger or Spirit Box. I found that to be pretty interesting, but of course, they only made the headlines because she's a masked singer who can scream. Like, don't get me wrong, she is talented, whoever she is, and the anonymousness or the anonymity helps with the clickbait. But I'm like, Jesus Christ, y'all are just tethering to the sleep token trend, aren't you? And you're just like trying to dox this woman as soon as possible. Like, fuck off. But anyways, that's just like my more intrusive thought take on all of that. So, until that of us getting Ryan back on the show, maybe even individually, that way we can see how similar answers are for these remaining questions. I think that will be the end of the Anatomy Crosscast and Seek Misery's first date conversation. Thank you once again, Davie, for taking the time that you did to jump onto the show, tell your story, and talk about Seek Misery. I look forward to checking out this album, and of course we will have conversations otherwise, but maybe we can figure something out. That way we can pull some money into the Anatomy Crosscast for its 3 personalities and get us closer and closer to turning the show into a business. Otherwise, we will see you all later, and just like the true counterculture music machine, let's keep cranking, and we'll see you later.